I just saw some chemtrails, so I'm gonna make a video about chemtrails in the context of just thinking about it, but not just chemtrails. Okay, hello folks. I'm gonna do this, look at the view, see what I see while I talk instead of looking at me. Probably better. Yeah, so the campaign of World War III in the Middle Eastern theater, specifically the recent attack on Iran by the United States with its proxy, has kicked off, and much has been said already, even though it's too early to know what the heck's going on, except people want to go on and say, number one, I told you so, and number two, well, the people I follow. I don't watch corporate media anymore, really, because I don't learn much from it. It's fairly shallow. It's too brief for me. It's not in depth enough. So I follow some independent journalists. I look at some newspapers, and I, read some independent journalism here and there, mostly on Substack these days. There's good information out there if you have time to look at it, and if you have the interest to look at it. Not everyone's that interested, obviously. So, the other day I was talking to a friend, and I was thinking about what we pay attention to, how we bullshit ourselves, how we rationalize things. Basically, all people don't really have the capacity to pay attention to everything. And some things are very complex and difficult to understand, which is why certain people spend so many hours and years becoming expert in a field. So obviously there are things like you're an expert painter, or you're an expert violinist, or whatever. I use expert, you say virtuoso pianist, or you are a championship basketball player or something. And a doctor, a brain surgeon, a heart surgeon, a technologist of some sort, an engineer, whatever. I mean, there are so many areas. Even bureaucrats can have expertise in certain areas of, social care or whatever. The point is that most people, the vast majority of us, maybe there's a fraction of a percent, that have the capacity to really pay attention to a lot of things, absorb them, understand them, and so on. Obviously, if you have the time to do such things and the desire, maybe there are a number of things you can be superficially aware of, not necessarily knowledgeable about. And of course, this all has to do with epistemic humility and so on. So, if you have the reflective capability of analyzing your own capacity for knowledge and so on, it's a good thing. You can kind of reflect and say, I really don't know much about this. I'm not interested in it, and so on. So if you're talking to some friend and you bring up dark matter, they may not have heard of dark matter. They may not be interested in it, but you may have read about it here or there in an article or something. Or maybe you read a couple of books on physics, and you heard the term and got interested in it and learned a little bit about it, but Your knowledge obviously is superficial, but you bring it up and your friend is like, nah, don't know about that. Your friend might think, well, now I do. At least I've heard the phrase dark matter. And so I've asked you what that is, and you've told me what you know about it, what you think it is. And so, okay, it's on my radar. I've heard about it. Next time somebody brings up dark matter, you can say, yeah, a friend of mine talked about that with me for a few minutes once. Or maybe you're talking to a friend and you're really interested in what they know about sailing or where to go when you visit Rome, or what book to buy if you like mystery novels or something like that. And you have that kind of, conversation. You can do that on YouTube and Google and whatever. You get interested in it, you look into it, you ask questions, you get answers. It's all good. So most people don't know too much about geopolitics and history. They might remember, if they're older, Vietnam, Central America, Indonesia, what happened, the first Iraq War, the second Iraq War, what happened in Afghanistan. They may have heard about a color revolution here or there, the fall of the Berlin Wall, whatever. They've heard some things, they know stuff happened, there was a president at the time in the United States, and so on and so forth. But they don't know much about it. And if they're an American, they just think, yeah, that happened. I didn't know much about it. I don't think it's necessarily good, but maybe it's necessary. I don't know. But yeah, I know about it. So now we're having another Iran war, I guess you call it. So people speculate a lot about, will it last a day, a few days, a few weeks, a few months? Is this the big one? Does this ignite World War III? In my opinion, we've been in World War III for a long time, and basically speaking, the whole game at this point, the great game that I always talk about, is whether or not the United States will continue in perpetuity to be the global hegemon, the empire. If you've seen, what is the film? Isaac Asimov series on some channel. Anyway, the empire. I am empire, and they have these cloned, this cloned guy who lives for thousands of years. Another clone, and they have this immortal android robot that takes care of him each iteration. He's just a clone, right? And the empire just continues, and it must control everything. And if it does, everything's good because the empire is good, and so on. And then if you beg to differ with the empire, your planet gets destroyed. Isaac Asimov wrote that a long time ago, and it's really kind of a fun story, series of books. But it's kind of like that in real life. The United States, the politicians that work for the corporations, and that's why I don't watch, some people call it mainstream, I just say corporate media, because the people reporting there are professionals. They present information that they're told to present. They're not thinkers. They're not really researching and thinking about their story and writing it. There was the whole editorial process in the olden days when New York Times was considered the newspaper of record and whatever. And journalists would, hunt down the story and figure it out and get, witnesses and evidence and corroboration and sources, and they tell their story. And the editorial staff would look into it, make sure it was cool, and then they'd publish it. Now we have self-publishing people who do all their own work, but they have more tools. They have the internet, they have AI, they have all kinds of, research librarians, LLMs. And they have sources as well, and they have expertise. A lot of these independents are experts in a particular area, whatever it might be, from sports to geopolitics, to aerospace weaponry, chemical weaponry, hypersonic missiles, drone technology, technology in warfare, how the tech has evolved in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. They really do know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And, you can kind of trust them. You can look at their sources and you can see if they sound reasonable based on what you know. And you can triangulate the information from different independent journalists and see if there are areas there where the lines of evidence coincide. That's if you want to do that. Most people don't want to pay attention to that. People are interested in different things. You might be interested in personal growth. And even personal growth is a big basket of interests. It could be all kinds of things you're thinking about. You might be looking through the lens of health or mental health, or maybe spiritual growth or intellectual growth or whatever. Every single thing that you're interested in is a fairly big basket of stuff. And, it takes time even to learn how to fly fish. You want to go trout fishing in Colorado, you need to learn a few things. Some things take a long time to learn and require psychophysical skills. Some things don't. You can't expect people to be expert in everything or even knowledgeable about everything. People just aren't, and they're not interested. So if you bring something up that they're not interested in, the conversation's going to end pretty quick. They'll change the subject or ignore you or whatever. And, we're not even talking about persuading people or convincing people or changing people's minds or anything like that. In a certain civic, social context, you might be in a room somewhere at the mayor's office or whatever, trying to convince somebody of something, or some group of people. Could it have to do with housing or water or whatever? And that's a totally different process. But I noticed that, over my lifetime, I've paid attention to different things. And so I was less aware of other things and so on. And people are like that. So there's no point in arguing with people about stuff. People may or may not know what Zionism is, and they might not care. Or if they do know about it, they might be pro or against or whatever. Pretty easy to find out. When somebody brings something up that you might think is conspiratorial or a conspiracy theory, first thing you have to do is think, does this sound like a story, anecdotal, a conspiracy story? In other words, there's no evidence behind it. There are no lines of evidence. There's no data. There's no witnesses. There's no photographs. There's no peer-reviewed science, whatever. There's all kinds of different lines of evidence, and there just isn't any. It's all anecdotal. It's all stories. And you might have a conversation with somebody. For example, I just saw a bunch of airplanes flying by, and you can see the little clouds of vapor left over from the vapor trails from the airplane. So a long time ago, when I was a subscriber to Skeptic magazine, and I used to get my magazine in the mail, and I would open it up and finger through it instead of flicking through screens. I would finger through it, the pages of the magazine. And it was fun to have. You held it, and you took it to the cafe with you and read a few articles, and it was nice. And maybe you saved them because there were some articles in it that you liked. Anyway, a long time ago I read about Chem Trails, and I don't remember the article. I just remember thinking afterwards that chemtrails are vapor trails from jet engines. But it persists, just like thimerosal in vaccines and mercury in vaccines and autism in vaccines and all that kind of stuff. It persists because new people find out about it, and they're prone to being attracted to the story. They think something's wrong, they don't understand it, they heard a story, and it sounds about right to them, so they hang on to it. And on one hand, they might look at you and say, why do you read so much? What good does it do you? You know, I would rather focus on my personal growth. On the other hand, they might have all kinds of ideas and opinions about vapor trails from jet airplanes. And you have to wonder where they got that information. So from a Socratic inquiry or line of questioning or whatever, that type of thing, you know, you might start off talking to your friend. They might say something like, what are they doing spraying this stuff all over the place? Look up in the sky. You see that? What is that? What are they doing? So without being a dick or an asshole or, you know, some prick, like I have friends who are just straight out, no sympathy for that kind of thing. They have an opinion on it. They're just going to state their opinion and treat you like an idiot. And of course, it doesn't help. Not a nice way to keep friends and whatnot. So you might say, first question, who are they? And it's you know, they've asked you a question. Was it a rhetorical question? Or were they really asking you, what is that? And you might answer, well, according to what I know about that phenomenon up in the sky there, is that it's vapor trail from jet engines. And I read an article or a few articles back in the day about the physics of it and why there are vapor trails. But I can't remember right now. You know, I've deleted that and replaced that with new memories, just like you do on a hard drive or your SSD drive on your phone with your photographs. I backed it up somewhere, can't find it. There's new memories there, so sorry, can't help you right now. But I'm sure you could look it up online. So, okay, cool, I'll do that, the person might answer. Or it might have been a rhetorical question, like, I already know what they are. I'm just asking to find out if this guy knows, since he seems to be a know-it-all. He just seems like the guy who thinks he's a know-it-all because he talks about the Iran war or something. When you talk about something, you're just talking about something. It doesn't mean you think you're an expert, you know. It's just something you're interested at the moment in, and you're focusing on it, and so you're talking about it. You don't necessarily believe that you know the ins and outs of the war and what's going to happen. And, you know, in betting markets on war, you're going to make money because, you know, your probabilities, your analysis is better than the other guy. So I'm going to bet $1 million that this war ends in 7 days or whatever. I think that's disgusting and obscene, but people do it. It doesn't mean that you think that you're an expert in whatever they think you're an expert in. It's just what you're focused on. And the other person, your friend, might be focused on a whole bunch of other stuff that you're not focused on. You don't know anything about it. So they could teach you a few things at the moment about that, or they might be an expert in something. A person could be an expert in textile design or something. And so they could teach you all about that if you were interested. If you really wanted to know, you could have a long conversation with them about it, and they would be happy to share with you. You know, people are generally excited to share what they know or what they think they know. So you ask the person, who are they? And they might say, well, the government. And oh, okay, which government are we talking about? Well, no, I've seen this phenomenon in Malaysia in Sweden, in Ireland, in France. I see it right here, right now. You can see it. I've seen it in the States, in Canada. It's everywhere. So what are they doing? The government. So you mean there's a intergovernmental conspiracy or plan or something where they have to spray something. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. So do you think there's like a United Nations kind of group that decided to spray something and or whatever, and the person might answer you straightforwardly or not. They're still not willing to tell you what they think they know. They might say, no, not necessarily an intergovernmental United Nations conspiracy or plan to do that. Well, okay, well, what do you think they're spraying? Again, they may or may not know. They may or may not be willing to tell you what they think they're spraying because they're still fishing for what you know or what kind of person you are, whatever. And so you still don't know what they're spraying, who they are, and so on. Is it the Davos crowd that's doing it? Somebody might say, yes, it's the Davos crowd. What are they spraying? They're spraying mind control poison. So then there's so many questions. You know, what kind of poison is it? What's it made of? What are the mechanisms? How does it work on your brain? And on and on and on. There's a million things. And then once you get down that line of inquiry, you have to come up with evidence. So, and then of course, there's either evidence, and you can look at these scientific papers, you know, experiments in animal populations, experiments in human populations, you know, COINTELPRO, CIA, conspiracies, whatever. You can see the evidence and say, oh, wow, shit. Yeah, they're doing something. Why would they do it? You know, if it's bad, why would they do it? If it's bad, why would they do it if it's good? Then there are theories about that. Well, they're doing it because fluoride in the water will kill you, but the Chem Trails will make your teeth stronger or something. Whatever it is, I don't mean to be flippant, but they have some ideas, some theory, and it's based on something. So at the end of the day, you either have evidence for it, and you can evaluate the evidence, the sources of the evidence, the type of evidence, and so on, or you don't. And if you don't, then you're looking at anecdotes, stories. And then you have a different line of questioning you have to go down. It's like, why would I trust these stories? Who's telling them? What do they know about it? What are their sources? And if it's a massive global conspiracy, you know, how do they convince all of us that these people who know so much about it are just cranks? And then you might get to the point where you say, well, you know what? They're killing us with these chemtrails. They want to depopulate the planet so they can have, you know, however many billionaires are left, you know, just populate a little country club somewhere while the world heats up, or whatever it is. And they know that they're only going to be able to grow the kind of food they want to eat in a specific latitude in the Arctic Circle, and they can't share it with 8 billion people. Whatever the idea is, the story is. And you're like, okay, I got it. That's the story, and that's what you believe. Then the whole thing opens up. What can you do about it? Well, like I said, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just what's going to happen. So get on with it. Learn how to meditate. Make a shitload of money. Buy a yacht. Have a personal trainer on your yacht. Have a you know, alternative medicine doctor on your yacht to make you feel good. Get some work done if you're older before you get on the yacht, so you feel good about your appearance. The main thing is you just want to feel good. They are killing us, so the only thing left to do is feel good. So whatever roads to feeling good are available for you, you take them. Some people might be attracted to material possessions or beauty or influence or status. They'll take roads to get that. Other people might be interested in peace and quiet. They might go build a cabin in the woods. Different people are going to do different things. You go down these lines of inquiry and you'll kind of figure out where they're coming from, and that's okay. Then you might also have a person who says, well, there's a lot we can do about it. And they might have ideas, boycott and divest the Davos crowd or whatever. Become a socialist or become a radical anarchic libertarian capitalist or something. And then when you have enough money, you can control the game and you can stop the chemtrail. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you might think about doing something about it. Most people aren't going to get to the stage where they're going to do anything about anything. They're going to stop when they figure out that the only thing they can do in their lives is feel better. And the most practical, enlightened decision one can make is how to do the things that make you particularly feel better. And some people might say that's solipsistic or selfish or whatever. Other people might say, no, that's just inward focus. It's kind of enlightenment and on and on. And that's fine. You might want to chuck everything. And even though you're not Tibetan, you might want to become a Tibetan Buddhist and, put everything into practice. Or you could join a cult or whatever. And but a lot of people don't do that. They just focus on their business. They focus on their hobbies. They focus on their families. They focus on whatever they want to do, and they just try to get on with it and have fun and have a good life and not hurt anybody, be good people, be honest, hardworking, decent people. And that happens all over the world, whether you're rich or poor, whatever country you were born in, whatever, it's all that way. And all the baddies in America that run the empire right now, they believe they're just good people doing good things and getting on with life. They're good parents, good fathers, good mothers, on and on. And they feel pretty damn good about themselves. So if they decapitate a government, take out all their leaders, they're all bad guys, they're all dead, they think, well, I've done my job, I've done something good for the world. And what they don't understand is the world doesn't think like them, and there's other people that are going to take their place. And this horrible game of empire never ends. It ends when there are no longer the energy and materials for it to continue. So that's when it ends. And when that happens, it happens. So you read The Honest Sorcerer, and you have a scenario where a new Bronze Age happens sometime in the future, 100 years, 1,000 years, whatever it is. And people are just reduced to doing what they got to do to survive, which is what we've always done since the emergence of our species. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So I think people are going to just go along with it, whatever it is, whatever line of inquiry you want to go down, whether it's chemtrails or war, and come what may. When it hits their doorstep, they'll do what they have to do. Before that, they're not going to do much of anything. They're not motivated to do that. At the end of the day, I want to know which BenQ monitor I need for gaming, and whether I can use this PC or that PC. What's my budget, and what am I going to spend my money on, and how am I going to make money, and on and on. So we're captive. You don't judge people for being captive in this system. We're always captive, whether you're a serf or a slave or a worker in a Soviet factory or you are addicted to a drug or something. It's sad, but it's just true. And the way this whole thing's going to play out, I can tell you, I know. But anyway, you can listen to everybody speculate about when the bombs are going to stop dropping, or when America runs out of cruise missiles, or whether or not those jets are emitting vapor trails or chem trails. Go on and on and on talking about it every single day, play by play. And it is what it is, was what it was, and shall be what it shall be by virtue of having been. Someday in the future, people are going to look back, analyze it, and say, that's what happened. And if they're honest historians, analysts, they'll follow the evidence for the historical Jesus, or was Mary, the mother of Jesus, who was she? Whatever it is. They're going to figure it out, write books about it. If there are still books in the future, we'll read about it and we'll think we know something, and then we'll have a conversation about that. And people say, who was the historical Mary, mother of Jesus? And you'll be able to tell them a story if they're interested. And if they're not, you'll bring up, hey, did you know who the historical mother of Jesus was? And they'll yawn and they'll go, no, and not really that interested, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to waste my day focusing on that subject. So if we want to have a good day, let's talk about something that both of us enjoy talking about, and forget about the historical Mary. I always think that I meet a friend and I think, I just was thinking about this or reading this book. It was so interesting, and I want to talk about it with them. And I'm so happy to do that. And sometimes friends go along with it, sometimes they don't. Like, no, Stephen, I really don't want to talk about that. So that's the way it is. The way this ends is, the United States runs out of energy and the ability to finance for whatever reason. I don't think the multipolar thing is going to happen. Who knows? Anyway, this is going to go on until the U.S. controls everything. And the Earth is called Empire. It's no longer called Earth. It's called Empire. And everything's Disney Plus. And we'll do that until we run out of the energy and the materials to do that. Then the United States and the rest of the world will, quote unquote, balkanize. Everybody will start to go to war with each other for resources. We're doing that already, right? But we're at war for resources for corporations, corporate persons. In the future, we'll be at war with people for stuff we need to survive. There's a big quantitative and qualitative difference between those two situations, sets of circumstances. So that's how it evolves into the future.